Uh, I want to start by mentioning that in my original signing up for doing summer worship, my intention was to create a video talking with a bunch of different congregants from our congregation about lessons learned across the course of the pandemic. And I think I encourage everyone to ask each other that question, like, what are some learning that you've had across these last 18 months? Um, then early in August, we decided to buy a house. And so August has been buying a house. And the time, and I feel like what would have been the gift to myself of like sitting in the wisdom of so many friends from the congregation had to take a backseat to that endeavor. And also, signed up to do a summer worship months and months ago. And in this moment, we're in a different moment than we were then. And what I'm really keen into and aware of is this beginning of a new time instead of reflection of the last years. It's the beginning of what's happening next. It's the beginning of a church year. It's the beginning of a school year. And I want to talk to you about a little bit of the ways that I think about starting classes when I've been leading classes, particularly classes that are creative. Just a little bit about me really quick. I'm David. I'm the president of the board of trustees here at First Unitarian, which has been a recent and exciting adventure for me. And I've come from theater. I was a theater director for a number of years. That's what brought me to Philadelphia. And since then, I've moved into education. So I help run Philly ALC, which is a school in South Philadelphia for self-directed education. And I'd love to talk to you about that if you want to know more. And I also taught at Penn for a number of years. And I'm going to share with you a technique that I use at the beginning of the semester in classes that I've taught at Penn, where I am trying to build a community. Because I think that's what we're doing when we're coming into our year and coming back together again in person. It's an opportunity to continue to build our community and build it a little even stronger and even safer. And that's what I'm focusing in on is safer. I think about safer spaces a lot. I think safer spaces or safe spaces have gotten a bad rap in the media. A discussion about especially in university settings, in classes, where the idea that students shouldn't have to confront ideas that are really difficult for them, that instead they should run and hide. And this has been castigated by all kinds of people as ill-advised. And I think that the idea of safe space has gotten kind of a bad rap. I think safe space is really important. And when I talk about safe space, I don't mean a space that is free of tension or free of conflict. What I mean is a space where that the tension or the conflict isn't going to be weaponized against each other. Where a space where you can work in and through tension with someone who is committed to working in and through the tension with you, as opposed to someone who's committed to working against you, using the tension against you. So when I think of safer spaces, I think of a space where that's about recharging sometimes, a space where you can come and recharge from the turbulence of the rest of the world. I think of a space where you can come to learn, where you're with other people and you're encountering new ideas and working on them together. I think of a safer space as a place where you can grow, where you are invested in the growth of the people that you're there with, and they're invested in your growth. Those to me are the important parts of a safer space. And so I want to ask you to think and imagine backwards through your life. And what are some of the safer spaces that you've been in? I invite you to put some of those into the chat. When you think of like safer spaces that have been places where you can recharge or learn or grow, what have some of those spaces been for you? I want to give a very recent example. At 9:30 each morning, many of us gather to begin to put together worship for that day, technically, or do the last steps of putting together worship technically. And we've been very deliberate about making that a safe space, a safer space, a space where people can come and be themselves and recharge and make mistakes and take risks and try things and share and do new things. So it's full of people who are doing new things. I think of Deb, who learned a new complicated program that we use to run the Median services and learned it from the ground up. I think of all the Zoom hosts who've come in and learned like the new skills about how to almost run a show and do that well. And thanks for sharing all of these different places in the chat. And now, as you begin to imagine some of the safer spaces you've been a part of, what made them so? What made them that way? When we gather in community, we create a culture together. Culture to me is what we do when we're together. What are the things that we do? And in a healthy culture, in the community where it's a safer space, what are some of the things that you have done or that community did to make it so, to make it safe? What are some things that you did every day? What are some things that you did intentionally? Culture can easily be this invisible thing. It's like the water that the fish swim in. Like they don't notice that it's there, but it's all around them and it's what supports them. Culture can be kind of like that in community. It's this way that we are together and we kind of almost don't even notice it, or we just exist in it and don't think about it too much. And in these moments of new beginning, it's an opportunity for us to think really specifically and with intention about our culture and to articulate the practices that have worked for us, and also to articulate the practices that maybe we need to add going forward to make it an even safer space, that we're constantly working on it together. So I'll also ask you to take a second and think about the not safer spaces, the less safe spaces, even the unsafe spaces that you've been in. And what are some of the things that made those spaces unsafe? And here, I mean, by unsafe, I mean a place where you weren't able to recharge and learn and grow, but instead a safe space where you needed to defend or hide or put up a mask. So thinking about those spaces, what are some of the spaces that were like that for you? One of the things I think is really interesting about that question is there are unsafe spaces that can feel very comfortable. And maybe they're comfortable because they're familiar, or they're comfortable because at least here I am basically safe. Like I'm physically safe, I'm getting my basic physical needs met. And yet they can be unsafe as well. They can be unsafe psychologically, emotionally. It can still be a place where you're fed and clothed and housed, but you're not cared for, where your learning and your growth isn't invested in, where you can't really recharge. And so thinking about what are those things that make those spaces unsafe. For years, I taught Intro to Acting at University of Pennsylvania, and this is a class where, and it's mostly to non-majors. And so this was often a class where people came in doing something that might be really easy for them. They like performing, they like talking, they like sharing. And it's also a space for a lot of the students where they're doing something that's really hard. They're intentionally challenging themselves by coming into a space and doing public speaking or performing in front of other people, being silly in front of other people. And that's really hard and challenging. And it's important for us to grow and learn together, that we're constantly taking risks. And one of the fundamental benefits to me of the safer space is that it's a risk-taking space. And interestingly, risk and safe often don't go together, but because it's a safer space, I can take a risk. Because it's a safer space, and I know that if I fail, that no one really gets hurt. That if I fail, I don't really get hurt. That if I fail, I don't get assaulted or ridiculed or made fun of. That when I fail, hopefully I can fail again really soon, because I just try again. And I can fail again, and I can try again, and I can fail again until I find it. Right? Because that's usually what learning looks like. It's trying a lot of things until you find it. And then we grow. And that if I'm not safe to take those risks and try things, that I can't really grow. And so, in fact, the safer space is not a kumbaya, cuddly, warm space. It can be those things too, but its fundamental usefulness to me are that it's a space that is full of risk, that it's actually efficient for growth. It's efficient for learning. That if I'm trying to learn in a space where I have to spend so much energy just to take a risk, that it takes a long time to learn and to grow. And so at the beginning of this, each class, each semester, I asked the students to help build what I call a safety constitution together. And what it is a list of things that we are going to do as a group, as a community, to make a safer space so that we can take risks. And I'll ask the students to break up into groups and come up with 5 things that they will do and 5 things that they won't do to create a community where we are safe to take risks. And they each come back with their list of things, and then we'll combine the lists together and talk about them. And so I'll ask you to think about for yourself, and you're welcome to put some of these thoughts in the chat if you like, of what do you think are some things that it's really important that we do as a community, and maybe it's things that we've done, and maybe it's things you've done in other places that are safer, or that other people have done for you in safer places. What are some things we can actively do as a community to create a safer place, a safer space? If you have things that we won't do, I'll ask you to take a second and reflect on those. And can you flip the things that we won't do into things that we will do? So instead of I won't make fun of people, what is the thing that we will do? Maybe it's something like I'll support people, I'll respect people. And so if you can imagine this, what are the things that we can actively do? Because a safer space, and I use the word safer and not safe, right? Because it's not as if there's a binary. It's not as if there's safe spaces and unsafe spaces, right? That there are spaces that we can work together to make safer. And as we make them safer, we're more able to take risks and grow. We're more able to recharge. But it's never a switch. And the other important idea behind that is that it isn't that when I show up at church, I'm in a safer space, and just because it's at church, right? It's, in fact, something that needs to be tended to all the time. It's not just because we say it's a safe space, it's a safe space. But it's something that we all have to actively do with intention to make it a safer space for ourselves and for each other. And so the safety constitution is not about like describing what we want the space to be like. It's about the things that we'll do actively. And so I wanted to share with you some of the things that always come up after we talk with the students, the things that always come up, that are always there, that I think are really useful, that I've learned from the students that are important to creating a safer space. Number one is respect. The idea of that respect, and not just respect as something that I think, but respect is something that I do. Respect as an action. That I reflect back to you that you're important to me, that I care about what you think and what you say, even if I disagree with it. That I respect that what you're sharing is part of you and that you're putting it out into the space, you're giving me part of you, and I'm going to care for that, and I'm going to reflect it back to you. Students often focus on the fact that we're different, and that respect is a way to think about difference and see that just because we're different doesn't mean that we're less or more, that we're just different, and that I respect that difference. I value that difference. Even if I don't always agree with it, I value it. Another thing students constantly bring up is that we're going to take care of each other. And that isn't to say that I'm responsible for you and you're responsible for me, but I can do things that I can work to take care of you. When we're playing games together, it's really important that everyone takes care of their partner while they're playing. There's a lot of games in acting classes where you can humiliate the other person, or you can make them look like a fool so you look really good. And that could quickly erode trust and risk-taking in the group. And instead, we think about how can you make the other person look really good? How can you take care of your partner? And the flip side to that is that we also, in order to have a safer space, we have to take care of ourselves. And usually that means expressing needs more than anything. That if I trust that you are going to express your need, that you're going to put your needs out there, then I know I can push you harder. And we can learn more. If I know you're going to say stop when you need me to stop, then I know I can push and challenge you. And if I know that you're going to listen when I say stop, that you're going to take care of me in that way, when I say stop, you're going to stop, then I'm okay to sit in the areas that feel a little tense and a little hard, because I know that at any moment I can get this to stop, and we can move on, right? We can stop, check in, recharge, change directions, move on. But that I can live in that tension if I know that you respect me and I respect you, and that we're going to stop when we need to stop. So those three key things are usually the things that lead the way: respecting each other, taking care of each other, taking care of ourselves. The other two that constantly come up that I love are listening. I'm going to listen deeply all the time. I'm going to listen to ideas, that I'm going to listen to body language, that I'm going to listen to the whole person, what they're giving me. That I'm going to listen for stop sometimes. So even if someone's not saying it, if they're communicating another way, I'm going to listen. And that I'm realizing that listening sometimes means not speaking, and that I'm going to think about, am I one who is always speaking over another person? And maybe I'm going to listen more and create that space for other people to step forward. And the other one that comes up a lot is that I'm going to actively take risks, that I'm actively going to try things that are hard for me. And by doing that, I am making this space safer, because it is a space where we are taking risks, that other people can see me taking a risk, and that makes it okay. They feel more okay for them to take a risk. That I can take a risk, and by doing so, by taking a risk, by trying something, I begin to see where the edges are. By taking a risk, maybe I'm going to fail, and I see where, and I've learned something new. And I've learned something about the space, and I'm able to make it safer. So by taking risks, I'm able to make the space safer. And then like the spice that is always in there that students add is like have fun, laughter, joy, buoyancy. That always comes up. And I often push back on that one, going like, I don't know if I can like always choose to laugh, but I can know and listen that if there is laughter and joy and buoyancy, that I'm probably closer to a safer space than not. That it's a great side effect of creating a safer space is people are able to have fun. Both laugh together just by enjoying each other's company, but also laughing together at the failures that we're making together. And that isn't to say, it's the laugh with someone, right? And usually I can lead that by laughing at myself, by not taking myself too seriously, by enjoying my mistakes when possible. So those are some of the lessons that I've heard from students over the years, and our safety constitutions tend to, and I never direct them about this, it always just comes to this. They always tend to shape in about that way, respecting, taking care of each other, taking care of ourselves, taking risks, listening, and joy, buoyancy, laughing. And this is what I want to invite with you right now, is as you think about what are some of the things you know you need for safer space, how can you create that with others? One of the things I love about First U, for me anyway, I've experienced it typically as a really safe space. And I know because I'm laughing and I'm growing and I'm challenged and I'm learning and I'm recharging sometimes. Maybe you need a space mostly for recharging. Maybe you just need the space for stepping out of the storm for a minute and taking a breath. And maybe you need it most for learning, or challenging your ideas, putting them out there and getting feedback. Maybe you need it most for growing, for trying and failing and taking a risk and learning from that and growing richer. But thinking about the space that you need, how can you actively create it for yourself and for other people? So going into this year, both as a new church year, as a time where we're back together again, physically in person, back together where we're physically in person at a place where people are going to have a wide variety of comfort levels with physical contact and proximity. And I don't know about you, but like navigating that has felt really tricky for me, because I don't always know where people stand. And so for me, consent and actively thinking about consent has been really important, and asking people that I want a hug. Can I give you a hug? Before just reaching out. Because by reaching out, I'm sort of insisting that they hug me. By reaching out, I am saying, I have this need for you to hug me. And because that person cares about me, they might overstep their own needs to fill my needs, right? And so I'm trying to create ways to very simply, can I give you a hug? How about a handshake? How about an elbow bump? How about a wave? I'm thinking about those moments both like for myself, how can I take care of the other person, but also how can I take care of myself by knowing ahead of time what my safe space there is, what my boundary is, and practice in my head ahead of time. What are some ways, some things I'm going to do to help clarify that and keep that clear? But what are some ways that you can this year actively help create a safer space, both for you and for everyone else? I just want you to have a couple of those things in your pocket and then bring them with you with intention whenever you're coming together, whenever we're coming together as a community. Bring those with you and just keep in your mind, here's some things that I'm going to do. I'm thinking about that one about asking for physical contact before assuming it. I'm a hugger, so like asking for physical contact before assuming it. I'm thinking about asking questions more of other people. That I tend to listen almost too much in the sense of like, I just wait for you to say what you want to say. And I'm recognizing a need to just ask a little bit more, ask some more specific questions to invite the other person to share. That I feel like I missed that opportunity a little too much. Those are a couple things that I'm thinking about. What are a couple of things that you're thinking about? What are a couple of things that you think you might actively do to create a safer space for all of us and for yourself? I invite you to put that in the chat if you want, or invite you to keep thinking about it. But usually to start making things happen, I feel like you just need to tell somebody. So putting in the chat is a great way to do it. Telling somebody you're with is a great way to do it. At coffee hour, after worship, if you're staying, telling somebody there, here's a couple of things that I'm going to do to help create an even safer space at First Unitarian. And then finally, connecting this to our mission of awakening love and justice in our lives and in the world. I want you to think about your capacity to carry a safe space with you and bring it wherever you go to create it for other people. To see other opportunities for groups you're a part of, other communities you connect with, even the small and short-lived community of like that group of people you're talking to at a party, or the group of people that you're on the subway with for the next several stops, or the group of people that you're interacting with online. What can you actively do in your life all the time to create a safer space and to lead in that way? And please be very realistic and forgiving of yourself if all you have to offer in that moment is just a little bit of just being more present or anything, right? That some of us have the capacity to come in and really create a sense of safety in a space, And some of us are going to come into a space and be taking smaller steps there. And wherever you're at, it's great. Just thinking about intentionally kind of doing the next thing and bringing some intention to creating space, a safer space. What I have found is that this is something that works from the ground up, from the grassroots up. That as we create these safer spaces and people experience them, that more and more they'll have less tolerance for unsafe spaces, and they'll speak up more, and they'll help create the next set of safe spaces that they encounter with. I don't know about you, but I see this online all the time, or in other spaces where there's just people who are not going to tolerate the hate or the aggression or the violence anymore. And the people who are used to like winning a room just by being their belligerent self are really offended by this. And to me, that to me is a mark of something's working, as people are less and less tolerant of an unsafe space, and that they're actively working to create it. So friends, I look forward to actively creating a safer space with you together. And thanks for taking some time with me to think about and reflect on this. And I look forward to asking you all for a hug soon.
Hi, I'm Reverend Hannah Capaldi.
And I'm Reverend Abby Tennis. We are the ministers at the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where our mission is to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world.
We're so grateful that you watched, and we hope that the sermon connected with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for a live worship service every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can always find the link to that service on our website at www.philauu.org. In these services, you'll hear words like you've just heard, and you also get a chance to greet one another, pray together, sing together, and we even hold a virtual coffee hour after services to get a chance to greet some new and old friends.
If you want to support the mission of this community and you feel moved to give, you can do so by going to the website that Reverend Abby just mentioned. You can find that link below, or you can text 215-709-5095 and follow the prompts to give.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, we encourage you to share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.